الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله، روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. محمد رسول الله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل. Mu'minina mu'minat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jumu'ah Mubarakah upon everyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Friday a blessed day for all of us, a day of reflection, a day of purification and return to Him, inshaAllah. Alaykum salam. Congratulations on the birthday of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Sayyidul Mursaleen, Khatamun Nabiyyin, Muhammadin al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Also, congratulations to all the lovers of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the followers of Ahlul Bayt on the birth of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi afdal al-salawat wa tahiyyat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. On this very auspicious occasion, I want us to briefly reflect on a few words from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and also a few words from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi afdal al-salawat wa tahiyyat. The reason why we remember them is because the Prophet of God is a messenger from God, so they are the path to God. We don't remember them because they're related to us or because there is any kind of tribal attraction or tribal connection, tribal connection between us and them. It is simply the love of God that makes us love Ahlul Bayt. The love of God and wanting to get closer to God is what makes us love them and learn from them or want to learn from them. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in a beautiful hadith that I want to share with mu'mineen and mu'minat, and perhaps all of us should make sure that we are responsible when it comes to the words of our teacher. You know, the more, last night I mentioned to mu'mineen and mu'minat, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is our teacher. The more you listen to your teacher and try and learn from your teacher, the better student you are. And the better student you are, the more chances you have in your career, in your future. And our future is not just here, it's the hereafter. Although it reflects itself here, however, the real concern is akhirah, is the hereafter. So the more we learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and implement in our lives, the better chances we have to be his neighbors in akhirah, in the best positions, inshallah. And that is in fact what should matter to all mu'mineen and mu'minat, rather than simply focusing on names and characteristics which should not matter to us, and or physical characteristics I'm referring to here. Name and physical characteristics, place of birth, date of birth, all these things are secondary, although they're significant. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam should be remembered every day. His birthday has a significance because God chose this day to bless the world with this personality. Obviously, this is a blessed time. So we take advantage of this blessed time and we remember them and we try and further get close to them on these occasions. As we know, hearts are not always in the one position. All of us, all of our hearts are in different themes and moods at different times. All of us. Some people, they go too far between those moods that some may give them titles. Psychologists may call it bipolar or some other issues. Nonetheless, and most of us, we don't have those, variations are not that significant. Especially believers should not have so much variation, meaning we could not go from being a sinful individual, completely sinful, to completely submissive. Somewhere in between submissiveness and less submissiveness. Sometimes we may not be as enthusiastic about ibadah as we should be or we would like to be. Sometimes we are better. In fact, Rasulullah ﷺ, he says the hearts are like a feather in a windy day stuck on a bark of a tree. Imagine a feather flying in a windy day and the tree is, it gets stuck on the tree. Now what happens with the wind? That feather is constantly flapping, different positions, taking different positions. That's how hearts are. That is why Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he further elaborates when he says, Inna lil-qulubi iqbalun wa idbar. Sometimes hearts are going forward towards goodness and God and being closer to God, and sometimes it's not as much. This is how the hearts are. So we take advantage of times and places and positions or situations where we can move forward. We cannot be all the time in 100% remembrance of God or 100% taqwa. That is why we have the ayah in the Holy Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatih. You have to be conscious of God the right way you should be. Haqqa tuqatih, what He deserves. And then another ayah comes to clarify that says, ittaqullaha mastata'tum, as much as you can. Why? Because that haqqa tuqatih is not possible for most of us, for many of us, to make sure that we are doing taqwa as God deserves it from us. Most of us do not have that. Therefore, mastata'tum, as much as you can, whatever capability God has put in you and whatever capability your heart has in terms of being God conscious, that is what you're responsible for and what is put on you in terms of the burden that God puts on any of us. If we are taking advantage of these circumstances, these times, these special times, then we should be, on these days, we should be extra cautious and extra conscious about making sure that we are in taqwa. This is why I want to share the hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says there are three things if a person does not achieve, does not have within themselves, they will not have anything complete for them. Nothing will be completed for them. And completion is not a matter of this dunya. We have to be careful. When the ayah says kullu amrin dhi bal, or the hadith, my apologies, the hadith says kullu amrin dhi bal lam yubda' bismillah fahuwa abtar. Every important matter that doesn't start with bismillah is cut off. Something, well, if I start a meal without bismillah, I still ate. because we don't recognize or realize what happens afterwards, the consequences in this world and in the hereafter. So we need to understand Bismillah connected to this world and to the hereafter. Throughout, it completes your matter. Any matter is incomplete, he says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for any person unless they have those three things. One, وَرَعٌ يَحْجُزُهُ عَنْ مَعَاصِ اللَّهِ. A person should have wara. Wara is an emotion, a feeling, some sort of mindset and the state of the heart and the mind that blocks one from something. Okay, one is careful, one is scared about something. You know, many of you may have witnessed how different people or different children react to danger, to water, for example. If you see a child who does not know how to swim, we're assuming here, coming towards the water without any caution, you say, this child isn't very smart. What's wrong with him? About to jump in the water, doesn't know how to swim and doesn't realize that this is dangerous. You see another child coming and very cautiously testing the depth of the water, for example. You see, oh, what an intelligent child, you know, because cautiously they're coming towards the water. Or any danger, let's say fire, water, streets, some beast, some animal. Okay, some children may come towards beasts or animals without any fear. You'd think, well, there's something wrong with this child. What is wrong with him or her? Whereas if you see a child that's cautious, you say that is the better way to be, because they're cautious unless and until they know that everything is safe, everything's good. This is wara with regards to what God has made forbidden. Wara is when you realize that God has forbidden these things, certain things, whether it be drinking alcohol or gambling or lying or stealing, taking away the rights of others, abusing others, all of these things that God has forbidden. Wara is what makes one stay away from it and be very careful about it, knowing that this is something dangerous. This is one thing that the Prophet says is a necessity for a person's matters to be complete. The second one, he says, وَخُلُقٌ يُدَارِي بِهِ النَّاسِ. This is very important. A person needs to have what the hadith says, mudarat. Mudarat is to be concerned and conscious about other people's likes and dislikes, you know, muqaddasat, things that they consider holy and they respect. Be considerate towards others in simple terms. Be considerate. A person should have this consideration and should be considerate. Their khuluq is what causes consideration. Khuluq is the inner drive. When we speak of akhlaq, we're not speaking of behavior. Akhlaq, ethics, as Islamic studies teach us, and the khuluq that the hadith is referring to, is not the behavior. The behavior is a reflection of the khuluq. The hadith is saying, khuluqun yudari bihin nas. That khuluq, that good inner drive that makes them have good way of dealing with others, therefore they're considerate when they're dealing with others. Therefore, for example, they do to others what they like done to themselves, and they don't do to others what they don't like done to themselves. This is the reflection of that khuluq. That is, the mudarat is the reflection of it. That khuluq is again the inner drive, meaning what? Recognizing the fact that I want to be the better person. The heart wanting to drive, that drive is towards being better. The last one, he says, وَحِلْمٌ يَرُدُّ بِهِ جَهْلُ الْجَاهِلِ. This is very significant. Many of us lack this part. Many of us. And especially in the modern society, where we're told by some, and I don't want to get into who and what their motives are, but we're told by some that, you have to be, basically you have to be yourself, respond, be assertive, you cannot allow people to walk all over you. All of these things in principle are good, but in terms of how they're put into practice is what goes wrong sometimes. When somebody is ignorant, jahil, and they abuse you, verbally abuse you, as a Muslim, as a believer, as a good person, a good-hearted person, the response should be what Quran tells us, وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ قَالُوا سَلَامًا. When an ignorant speaks to them, now what does it mean an ignorant speak to them? Somebody is being abusive verbally. Somebody is being disrespectful. Somebody is overstepping their limits with you. Does something that they should not be doing. That is jahl. The response to it, according to some, is you have to respond. You cannot allow them to get away with this. This is disrespectful. This is according to some. According to the Muallim, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says when a jahil acts ignorantly with you, you have to have forbearance. Hilm. وَحِلْمٌ يَرُدُّ بِهِ جَهْلًا الْجَاهِلِ. So that you can repel and you can protect yourself from their ignorance through your forbearance. Not that you respond in a way that you bring about more negativity. They attack you with negativity. You respond with negativity. What is it going to produce? Even more negativity. The next step is going to be even worse in terms of disrespect or any kind of abuse and so on. And it basically makes the whole environment, toxic environment and harmful environment for everybody, negative and harmful for everybody. Therefore, a believer requires those three things. Don't forget. The first one is wara', to make sure that we do not go near the ma'asi. The second one is khuluq, to make sure we are considerate with people. And last but not least, to have forbearance. Therefore, we do not respond to ignorant the same way they attacked us, the same way they are being ignorant. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and put into practice what we learn. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد المصطفى وعلى علي المرتضى وفاطمة الزهراء وخديجة الكبرى والحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي التقي وعلي بن محمد النقي والحسن بن علي العسكري والحجة القائم المهدي الإمام المنتظر صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم وآل من والاهم وعاد من عاداهم وانصر وانصر من نصرهم واخذل من خذلهم والعن من ظلمهم. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك على كل شيء قدير. عباد الله اتقوا الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. Dear mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, once again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jumu'ah Mubarakah to everyone, and once again congratulations on the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and his grandson Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi afdalus salawat wa tahiyyat. In this second sermon I remind myself and my brothers and sisters of the provision of taqwa. Usikum wa nafsi bi taqwallah fa innaha zadul mablagh. It is what we need to reach our destination. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, in a beautiful hadith, I shared a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the first sermon, and inshallah briefly a hadith from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam in this sermon. He says, إن سرعة ائتلاف قلوب الأبرار إذا التقوا وإن لم يظهروا التودد بألسنتهم كسرعة اختلاط ماء السماء بماء الأنهار. He says, for the righteous people, good people, righteous people, when they get together, good hearts. We're speaking of hearts here. In the first sermon I mentioned, it's all about the pure heart. He says the pure hearts of the abrar, of the righteous people, they mix together so well and so quick, just like when the rain falls, how it mixes with the river, with the water of the river. When the rain starts falling, as soon as it hits the water of the river, you cannot divide them and say, okay, this is the rainwater, this is the river water. They mix immediately, they're together. There are two different types of water, but when they come together, they mix immediately. This is how the hearts of the believers and the righteous ones are. When they get together, it doesn't take long. But as soon as they meet each other and they recognize each other as believers and righteous and those who are concerned with prayers and fasting and hajj and they're paying their zakat and alms and so on, immediately they become lovers, they become close friends, they become so close to each other that Quran describes them as akhillah. That is how they become when it comes to the righteous ones. Just like the rainwater mixes with the water from the rivers. He says on the other hand, وَإِنَّ بُعْدَ ائْتِلَافِ قُلُوبِ الْفُجَّارِ إِذَا الْتَقَوْا. Now for the first group, amazingly, the Imam says, even if they don't display love and affection verbally, they may not display it verbally, but they have it in their hearts for one another. He says, for the sinners, for the transgressors, for the fujjar, those who are constantly committing sins and transgressing God's laws, for those people, he says, their hearts are so far apart. Even if they display a lot of love and affection verbally, their hearts would never mix. He says, وَإِنَّ بُعْدَ ائْتِلَافِ قُلُوبِ الْفُجَّارِ إِذَا الْتَقَوْا وَإِنْ أَظْهَرُوا التَّوَدُّدَ بِأَلْسِنَتِهِمْ كَبُعْدِ البهائم من التعاطف وإن طال اعتلافها على مذود واحد. Amazing. He says this, their hearts are so far from each other, just like the cattle, goats, chicken, whatever you imagine, whatever animals that are grazing from the same field. He says they graze from the same field for a long time, but their hearts are not together. Imagine one of them tries to eat the other's food. What would happen? They would want to attack immediately. They don't want to allow the other one. They've been together for so long, neighbors for so long. But as soon as one steps, close to the territory of the other one, a fight breaks out. He says the Imam is telling us and teaching us, and these are the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As believers, we cannot be territorial. As believers, we cannot be divisive. As believers, we have to be united. Our hearts have to be together. All it should take is to know that someone believes in God, then we have some sort of love for them. If we know that this person not only believes in God, but also believes in God and the messenger Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, then immediately our love should double for them. You know, it's more of a reason now to love this person. And if we know that this person not only loves God and loves the messenger of God, but also practices, they make sure that they practice their religion, they pay what is due of their wealth, they pray and fast, they are good towards one another, our love should multiply for them immediately, but just by knowing that. And in fact, we could get to a point that the hearts recognize each other. As soon as you see somebody, you recognize their goodness and you start loving them. And on the other hand, it is the act of fujjar, sinning people, that they start becoming divisive. They start becoming segregating. They start becoming sectarian. They start becoming filled, as soon as they see the other, they become territorial, filled with hatred. How dare you come to my territory? How dare you overstep your limit? And they just want to go head on like the beasts. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to be amongst the righteous ones, amongst those who are close to other believers, our hearts to get close to other believers in love of God and His Messenger, and we ask Him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best, amongst those who يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجه.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا